ACLU's Peppermint outlines the dangers of drag censorship. The At Liberty podcast of ACLU, conducted by Kendall Ciesemier, recently talked about the dangers of drag censorship. Last year, the LGBTQ+ community faced an onslaught of scrutiny and threats, from bills banning trans youth from participating in sports to bans on gender-affirming care for trans youth. Towards the end of the year, another front for legislative and violent attacks emerged: drag shows. As drag reality competitions and drag brunches become increasingly popular, backlash in the form of armed protests and intimidation of drag performers has followed. In November, an Oklahoma bakeshop had a molotov cocktail thrown through its window after hosting a drag show. Later that same month, a shooter entered a Colorado Springs drag show and opened fire, killing 5 people and injuring more than 20. GLAAD reported that drag events faced 141 protests and serious threats in 2022. To talk with her about drag censorship and the tools to defend this expression were Peppermint, a notable drag performer and ACLU's artist ambassador for transgender justice, and Emerson Sykes, senior staff attorney at the ACLU's Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project. Peppermint talked about her journey as a drag queen and how drag played a role in identity shaping and formation. I have to say, the ACLU is really fortunate to have a resource with firsthand experience such as Peppermint. That you need to have that. You need to have that voice of experience.
Yeah.
And the ACLU is an amazing organization. Glad to see it. I think what you were just talking about, the way that we win is around intersectionality of issues. This story brought up
all in it.
Gun violence. Gun violence is aimed at children in schools.
Yeah.
It's aimed at LGBTQ people in nightclubs, and we come together again for gun safety.
Common ground.
So there's a lot of issues. Housing is something that I think we all can identify the issues that are here in South Florida.
Yeah, oh my God.
What is our governor doing to solve the housing crisis for people, for affordability and protections? Those are intersectional issues. So I think this story highlights a lot of that.
I was having a conversation with some trans friends of mine. They're activists in the community, fellow activists, and I was saying that we have to really gear up because the trans community and drag queens are going to be the target, and as the presidential election gets closer, I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive.
The interesting thing to me in that observation is how come? A story like this, a story of a comment that you just made in terms of activists coming to this conclusion of what's going to happen over the next 2 years, I think we're obliged to ask, how come?
Yeah.
In 1994, RuPaul came to VH1 with that groundbreaking talk show. It was revolutionary at the time in terms of a drag queen hosting a talk show. And while a lot of people might be repulsed by LGBT, churches may not like LGBT, we're sinners and blah, and blah, blah, blah. Please put your cross down. An exorcism's not going to work here. At the end of the day, there was not protest that RuPaul and the VH1 show was destroying America's children.
Yeah.
RuPaul's Drag Race begins in 2008. I'm centrically involved in it in its early stages, and it went on and on and on. Starts in Logo, moves to VH1, moves now to MTV. There was no outcry in America that these drag queens and this television show about drag is destroying the children of America. But even with Donald Trump coming to power in 2016 through the Trump administration, there was not this outcry from the White House that drag is destroying American value. It is not until places like Florida and Texas realize that if we gaslight the trans issue and we gaslight the drag issue under the broad veil of the history that Julio has helped educate us on, that they will gaslight the culture issue of parental rights. Do we see in 2021 a gigantic escalation against trans and drag queens. Now, when you connect all of those dots, you ask yourself, why? It's not to protect children.
Right.
That's gaslighting.
No.
It's to win elections
Yes.
and be in power. We see and know exactly what you're doing.
Scare tactic.
And now, exactly,
Yeah,
and you as an advocate, there's advocates completely at this table. We just have to understand this is what we're facing, and what are we going to do about it now? That's really, I think, the big issue. History repeats itself. Julio has helped me understand this. And where is my pie when I need it?
Is it a fruit pie? Is it a fruit? That's an Anita Bryant joke, everyone.
So, did you enjoy the show? I know you did. So make sure to click subscribe so you won't miss any of the events, news, or interviews right here on the Faye What Show. Ring the bell at the bottom of the screen, right there, so you'll be alerted every time we're live. You can also click on the Happening Out Television Network logo so you can see all of the shows on the most diverse LGBTQ plus media network. Find out just what we're doing to bring the L and the G together right here on the Faye What Show. Get the week started with me.